Hey guys, welcome back to A Story with Rory. Tonight I am here with Eric. He is our special guest tonight, and he has a pretty cool story of a UFO sighting. Hey Eric, how's it going?
Hello, doing just fine. How about you?
Pretty good. Where are you calling from?
I am in Sandwich, Illinois.
All right,
We're about
Illinois.
75 miles outside of Chicago.
Sweet, man. It's nice to meet you. And I guess go ahead and start from the beginning of what happened. What's your story about, and how did it happen?
Well, I guess what I usually tell people, I'm going to start off with this. What I usually tell people, if you're a believer in this stuff or if you're not, if you are curious, all you got to do is look up and just be a sky watcher.
Hmm.
I have one instance that I briefly mentioned to you, but I didn't get into it on that thread on Facebook that we'll go over after we go over these other instances, which is basically what I was doing, being a sky watcher, and I saw some weird stuff one night. But so to start off with, I got a train. If you could hear that or not, I'm out here in my camper because I have dogs in the house and they'd be barking all the time. So
Oh,
I come out here and the trade off is we got a train. So
yeah,
we're going to start off with just like had written in that comment about the pawpaw incident.
hmm
This is going back to 1997. This is, I believe, late summer or early autumn.
hmm
It was late at night. I was coming back from my stepbrother's house, which is out in Compton, Illinois. Now these towns are tiny out west of here. I don't know if you're familiar with the area or not. We have basically Route 34 and Route 30 heading north, or I'm sorry, east-west.
hmm
I was on, in between the two, you have Chicago Road, which is like a long country road.
Right.
And it leads out to Compton, leads out all the way out west. So anyways, I was coming back from Compton, and I was driving. At the time, I had a Firebird, and I had T-tops, and I had a cassette deck. It was the 90s. I didn't even have a CD yet. And had a cassette in my player, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of static coming over my radio, and I'm like, well, that's odd. I got a cassette in the radio.
Right.
And I just happened to look up. I had the T-tops out. It was a nice night. I looked up, and as I'm heading down the road, now I kind of try to do kind of visual if I get my orientation right on the camera here.
hmm
If my hand is my car heading east on Chicago Road, this thing came at me from my right rear, probably 3,000 or 4,000 feet in the air. And it wasn't going super fast or anything. It was cruising, but it was not super fast. Just crossed, over on an angle heading to my left front. And it was, I just happened to see it as I looked up. And when it continued off to my left front, all the way out towards the horizon, it suddenly made a 90-degree turn, or something about a 90-degree turn, very quickly, and zoomed off out over the horizon and just disappeared.
Oh man.
And it looked like a glowing ember of a cigarette,
Hmm.
which was really weird. I've
Right.
seen meteors, I've seen whatever come through the atmosphere, and this was not what this looked like, because this was well within our only a few thousand feet in the air.
Right.
Well within our atmosphere, and it wasn't sending off any smoke or any trail
Trailer.
or anything.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, that's odd. Well, I kind of hit the gas and hightailed it out of that little town as I was going through, because I was like, this is just kind of too freaky. I just saw my first, I guess, UFO, as he would kind of say. Kind of put it out of mind. I mentioned it to a couple of people I knew, but I kind of put it out of mind. And then a couple of weeks later, there was a news story on local Chicago news I don't recall what channel it was on, but out in Tinley Park, which is south of Chicago, almost to Indiana, off of I-80. Somebody out there said they saw something that they described it almost exactly like what I had seen, only it was kind of hovering, I guess, and coming down to the ground. And that's all I remember of that story, honestly. There's no big alien abduction or anything like that. I've never seen an alien or anything like that, or even I'm not even insinuating that these are aliens. I think that it's a very good possibility. It could be, but we can't be alone in the universe. That's how I look at it. But who knows what this is?
So,
yeah.
So it was like like an orange orb. Is that what?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, if you were to look at like it looked almost exactly like an ember of a cigarette. So yeah.
Okay. And then
like it was glowing or burning somehow. It looked like,
So it was just going like diagonal from where you were driving past you. Not going too fast. But what size is this thing? Like what would you compare it to?
At 3,000 or 4,000 feet, it's hard to guesstimate a size. I don't have anything to put up against but I would say guesstimate 50 feet, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be pretty freaky. You said you had static whenever you had the tape in?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Yeah, when that left, the cassette started playing again as normal. So yeah, I had static come over a stereo on my car that was playing a cassette.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you had some kind of experience of a UFO and just the interference that they can cause. Lines up. So
yeah, that's what made me think this is not of this world, because I never had that happen before,
right?
Or anything since that has interfered with a stereo,
right?
Or anything like that, or you see people say that it killed their car or something, and then and it wouldn't start if they see something. It was nothing like that. I was moving, and then once it passed, and I realized what I kind of saw. I went in that town doing 30 miles an hour. I came out doing about 95.
Well, it makes you wonder, maybe you didn't have much interference just because of how far it was away. Imagine if it was only like 150 feet or
True.
25 feet above your car.
Yeah.
I would think it'd be possible you could experience some of those interferences where, your car is not functioning like it's supposed to. You can feel like the hair on your back of your neck standing, like you might clench up a little bit from just fear, because you don't know what it is. And it's something like that I would think would be pretty overpowering. So yeah, that's wild. That's a wild story, what year did you say this was again? You say this was
1997.
The 90s. Okay.
Yeah.
Dang. So that's definitely taking it back there a minute.
it is, yeah. And I always remembered it. I have the visual in my head, that one, that going over me, and I always remember that pretty clear.
Right. Were you the only one in the car that saw it?
Yeah, I was the only one in the car. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
This kind of is my way is, well, that time I was alone, and the other ones I had people with me, but only one other person really saw,
right,
other than the Ozfest incident. There was somebody in the car with me, and they saw what I saw there too. But we'll get to that one in a minute.
Give me all you got. So, not to mix episodes, but I had a guy on last night, him and his daughter, where was this? Utah. 2 miles outside of an Air Force base is what he said. Saw a rectangle object it might have been the same distance you saw it, maybe like 5,000 feet, something like that. It might have been higher than that. I'm not sure, but he said it was rectangular and that it was like a mirror.
Okay.
and it was shiny. And he said the way he knew that was whenever it would turn, it would reflect the forest because he was driving like in the mountainous area, I guess. And there's a whole bunch of trees, and he said he saw the trees reflect in whatever it was. And I was like, "Well, how big is this thing?" And he's like, "If I had to guess, it was probably 1 to 2 football fields of length." I was like,
It's pretty darn big.
get out of town, you know?
Yeah.
And I was thinking if something really, let's just say something was that big, it would definitely be cloaked some kind of way. You know, I mean, I don't doubt that one bit, you know, and him and his daughter both attest to it. And it's just, it's a pretty wild story. You should watch it. But anyways, yeah, I had him on last night. And so there's just been a lot of, I don't know, a lot of cloaking UFO stories where they say, "Hey, I could see it," and then it disappeared, or I saw it and it was kind of like shiny, and I could tell it's like a whole bunch of mirrors are on it or something like that. Like it was all super
I'm
secretive.
sorry to interrupt, but have you ever heard anything about the government experimenting with cloaking paint?
Um, Not really. I've seen someone on YouTube that tried to make a cloak with paint, out of out of some kind of like cardboard or mirror. I don't know what he was using, some kind of material. And he basically walked behind it. You couldn't even see him. It was just like, wow.
I kind of think um, they have. I don't want to go down the spiral of Area 51 stuff, but um, I don't know if you do or not. But I believe they're experimenting with that out there, where like painting airplanes, their jet fighters and stuff
Hmm.
that could cloak or mimic what's above them. So basically, from the ground, you can't see them.
Right.
You just see the like maybe a little disturbance in the atmosphere, but but that's something that I don't know if I saw something about that years ago or what, but that was in my mind too. And when you mentioned that rectangle, I was wondering, is some kind of technology like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, or if it was just a mirror. You know what I mean?
I would probably be willing to bet that it's somewhere in the Pentagon's budget or somewhere, as because I mean that's something that could be used, you know, if you're in war, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
and you don't want to be seen. Like I could see them using that on like the B-21 stealth bomber, the
Hmm.
new one that just came out or not too long ago. I mean, it's quiet as can be. Now, imagine if it had cloakability, or the cloaking ability to just vanish, you know, that
Yeah,
would almost be mistaken for like, oh, a UFO, you know, because
exactly.
we don't know
Yeah.
we don't know what's been reverse engineered and what's been
And
tested.
they
And,
do have cloaking actual cloak, I guess, that military could wear.
right,
Like if they're out in the battlefield somewhere and they could kind of have this device on that lets them blend into the background, not
right,
camouflage, but actual cloaking device where they turn pretty much invisible.
right,
That I saw on TV, so I know
mhm,
it's true.
right. It was on the TV. Well, either way, it's pretty interesting, you
Yeah,
know, technology, and if there is a patent for that, or if there is a design for that, or that was something that was like reverse engineered. That's still pretty incredible. What I still find interesting though is like the Industrial Revolution. Okay, why are we having the giant Industrial Revolution process from, I don't know, late 1800s to now, and why didn't we have it like 300 years ago? So I don't know. I'm like, how did we get that technology for a cell phone? You know,
this
how do
quick.
yeah, how do these people
Yeah.
think of all this stuff this quick? And I understand that people have patents and they have ideas and they patent them and they design them, they engineer them. But where did the initial thought, where did the initial design come from? You know,
Hmm.
was it something that they were sketching one day? Because I'm sorry, but I mean, what guy is ever going to just know what a circuit board does in his mind and start drawing it out? I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying from the time span that we've gone through, like, you're not telling me there was any influence from any other kind of intelligent life or
Yeah, because
something.
it's like almost like nothing for thousands of years,
Yeah.
and then you got all of a sudden in 100 years we're what we call ourselves advanced civilization, uh,
Mhm.
internet, everything. Um,
And yeah,
uh,
that's a rabbit hole.
that goes into
I
that
can do
Major
that.
Corso was his name from the military back in the 50s.
Mhm.
There's something about he was doing alien tech or something like that supposedly,
Hmm.
or engineering or back engineering or whatever,
Mhm.
and that's how we got a lot of the technology that we got. Supposedly, that's what they were saying on that. Another thing that was on TV, but um,
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. So,
it does. It's thought provoking, is what it is. It's possible. You know, who
so
knows?
what's another encounter or sighting or whatever that you have that's happened like
Okay.
another?
Um, this was in year 2000. I got a little notes here, so I remember what order these are in because my memory isn't quite what it used to be. But I'm 51 years of age here, and sometimes I feel like I'm 90. But
Hey, we
but
all kind of go through that.
oh yeah. Uh, I call this one the Naperville one. This was the morning that I was driving my mother to work. At the
Hmm.
time, we lived over on the west side of Aurora, um, and she worked at the Dominick store over in Naperville. And we just drove straight through town through Aurora into Naperville. And there's a road called North Aurora Road that we were on. And this is about between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning. I
Hmm.
believe I was going on up to work it myself, which I lived in Lyle, which was the next town up that from Naperville. And up in the just I want to say a mile ahead of me, just as a good round. It could have been closer, it could have been a little bit further. Not very high off the ground, 300 or 400 feet maybe.
Hmm.
Uh, like I said, this is morning. The sun's come up, but we're driving into the sun because we're driving east.
Right.
So there's a little bit of glare involved here. Clear, clear day. Just kind of following the side of the road, just off of the left side of the road. It was just this gray object that looked from my point of view like it was hovering, but I couldn't catch up to it. So it had been moving slowly.
Hmm.
I was trying to get through traffic and stuff. It was bad traffic, trying to get through there. I just couldn't get close enough. And what was peculiar about this one, it looked like it could have been a blimp,
Hmm.
but a blimp it'd be very odd to have like the Goodyear blimp out at 8 in the morning, where there's no event going on anywhere,
Right.
Um, what was peculiar about this one was as clear as it was weather-wise and sky-wise, seemed to be a haze around this one.
Hmm.
Like it was kind of blurry a little bit,
Right.
just a little bit of a haze. And I never could catch that one. I dropped my mom off at work and pull out of her parking lot and go up and it was gone.
Hmm.
Lost visual on it.
Right.
So nothing much there. Just that I saw this and we probably were looking at it for about 20 minutes trying to
Yeah.
figure out what it was.
Right. Just processing it.
Yeah. And I remember getting aggravated because I wanted to catch up to it
Hmm.
and I just couldn't. But
Well,
yeah,
it's not something you see every day for sure.
yeah. Not nothing spectacular or anything like that, but just a sighting that I put in you know the what the hell was it file.
Right. The X Files.
Yeah, X Files of my mind.
Hmm.
So that one, okay, that's all on that one. You want to go on to the Ozfest one?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, this is a famous one and I didn't know it because it was Ozfest 2004, I believe it was 2004, 2005. I believe it was 2004.
Hmm.
Um, we spent the whole day, yeah, and I'm sure you're familiar with what Ozfest is or was.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Was that,
Ozzy's
was that in
metal
the
festival
90s?
he did.
Or
I'm
do they
sorry.
still do? Was that in the '90s, or do they
It
still?
was, yeah, late '90s through the 2000s.
Okay, yeah.
So I went to that. I had a buddy with me, and just the two of us went to it.
Hmm.
And this is out in Tinley Park again, where that one was on the news before. There's a big music theater out there,
Hmm.
about 30,000 people, in this outdoor venue. And didn't see it during the show or nothing. You couldn't see it during the show. But when we left, this is after the concert's over with. We're out in the parking lot. We're in the car. We're trying to get out of the place. Of course, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of cars trying to leave at the same time.
Right.
And right ahead of us, I figured about as high as a helicopter would fly normally. There was a series of lights in the sky, just single point white lights.
Hmm.
And they didn't appear to be moving, but that doesn't throw me that much because living near O'Hare Airport or Midway Airport, you see the planes come in at night and they're in formation. They got their lane lights on.
Hmm.
I just kind of shrugged it off. I made the joke though, my buddy, hey, look, UFO, but I didn't, I had no idea what was really going on there because a few years later, when that TV show, UFO Quest, I think it was on History Channel,
Hmm.
they had Monster Quest and they had UFO Quest and all the same guys. They did a whole episode on this.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I think you could see it online to this
Yeah.
day. And I was watching it, and I'm like, "Holy cow! I saw that. I was there."
Yeah, I joked around about it. Now it was
Yeah,
a real thing.
yeah. And as far as I remember, on the show itself, I know they filmed part of it over there at that music theater.
Hmm.
I don't know if they interviewed anybody from Ozfest. They made a joke going, "Oh, it's Ozfest. Everybody's stoned," and they saw what they, something in the sky. But, but no, I was stone cold sober.
Hmm.
But there was a block party in town in Tinley Park proper, not the outskirts, but in the town itself. And the people there said it was hovering right over them.
Oh
And they
man.
said it was a lot like the Phoenix lights.
Really? That's
Yeah.
kind of what I was thinking when you were describing it to me. I was thinking a lot about the Phoenix lights of, was it the '70s or '80s? I'm not sure.
That was in the 90s. That was early 97.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and when I thought about that, I was like, now that I see how those lights were laid out when I looked at them from my perspective, of course,
Mhm.
everything in this that I'm telling you is from my perspective, of course. You know, it did kind of look like it could have had a V formation to it,
Right.
but just maybe not maybe one's out of place or something, like not quite a V. But
Mhm.
that's why I didn't think much of it. I just figured, well, it's planes or helicopters or whatever,
Mhm.
at the time. But then when I saw a whole story on it on UFO Quest,
Dived
you
into it a
know,
little bit more.
yeah, and this was like maybe 3 or 4 years later that they did that
Right.
show, and I
Dang.
was like, wow,
That would have been pretty eye-opening, I would think,
yeah, and it's just me looking up at the sky, just being at the right place, right time, I guess,
Mhm.
with that one. Um, so that was, like I said, about 2004. I didn't see anything until 2016,
Mhm.
out in Albuquerque. If you're ready to go to that one,
Yeah, sure. Man, you've seen
yeah,
all kinds of things.
yeah, I know it's weird because I never think about me being the one that sees these things, but I do,
It's
you know, it,
kind of cool.
yeah. And I just wish I could explain exactly what they were,
Right.
like if one would land in my backyard here,
Mhm.
and I'd be, oh, and I get a picture of it, that'd be nice.
Right.
Uh,
Pose all the questions and everything.
yeah. So I was in Albuquerque. It was after Christmas of 2015. I went down there. I was there over the New Year, visiting a friend. Um, and we were out and about this midday afternoon at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Can't quite remember exactly what time it was. But I don't know what road we were on, but it's like a big main 4-lane road going through the center of Albuquerque. I don't know if you ever been in Albuquerque or not.
I passed through it, whatever main highway. I think it was I-20 or I-40. I'm not sure
Okay.
which one, but
Where do you hail from, by the way?
Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're down there in Tornado Alley.
Oh yeah. It's been pretty hit and go, hit and miss last month. So
well, if you remember the kind of the geography of Albuquerque, I remember some of it. I haven't been back there since, but it's got a few mountains out around it, as most like little desert towns do, and it kind of forms like a valley where probably the main center of town is at.
mm-hmm.
And we were kind of out of the valley area, so I could kind of see out and over it on this highway.
Okay.
And just ahead of us, what was I guess maybe, I say maybe 1,000 feet. And that could be give or take, a few hundred feet, above the ground, because I could see the ground and all the way down into the valley, but I could see all the way up. Just hovering. At first, I said, "Oh, look! It looks like a light bulb," and but it looked kind of like a hot air balloon, but it didn't have a basket or anything under it.
Right.
Kind of grayish in color, and just kind of looked like it was hovering.
It was like
my friend that was with me, she made the statement of the century. It's like, after asking, "What is that?" She's like, "It's like some kind of shape." I'm like, "Well, yeah." Of course, it's a shape.
Would you say it's like a ball or a disc, or what do you think on the shape for it?
I would liken it to be, if you see the shape of a light bulb.
Okay, so it actually looked like.
Yeah, it actually looked like the shape, like bigger on top, kind of tapered at the bottom.
Right.
It wasn't lit up or nothing like that. Of course, being daylight, who knows what we do at night? But like I said, if you've seen a hot air balloon, kind of have a similar shape to those.
Mm-hmm.
But it just did not quite look like a hot air balloon because, like I said, it didn't have a gondola or whatever hanging from the bottom of it. And we kept driving this road until we had to turn off.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what this thing did, but it must have turned or something when we turned, because I had a visual on it, and I had a cell phone camera on it, a video. And this is why it's so interesting to me, because it never showed up on video when I looked at the video until we got to a point where we had to stop at a T intersection.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a tree, and it was behind the tree, and I could just barely make it out, and like through the leaves, you can see it there. And that's the only instant that it showed up in the video when we reviewed the video.
That's weird.
That is totally weird.
Right.
And now my camera was really crappy, on my cell phone. It was not it was, I think it might have still been one of those old cell phones that had the keyboard that slid out from the side. It could have been at that point.
Those were nice.
Yeah.
Well,
but,
as long as you saw it on the video, that's proof, anything.
Yeah. I wish my friend that was with me, I wish she could have recorded, because she had an iPhone.
Oh man.
And but she was driving, and I wasn't thinking, let me grab your phone, give me your phone, let me record this thing.
Right.
It's hindsight 2020 on that one. But when you see in the video, and I still have the video somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I have because the computer that I downloaded onto when I came back home, it kind of died, but I saved the hard drive. So if I ever get a chance to get into the hard drive, I could see it again on there, and I could point out where it is in that, like behind the tree, but It's almost like there's nothing to see, because it's so, cluttered by all the leaves.
Yeah, granulated and all that.
Yeah. But so there again, just being right place, right time, and I can't answer what it was. I have no idea what it was. You're out there in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You got White Sands out there in New Mexico. You got Roswell out there. Who knows what's going on out there in the desert. I lived in Vegas for a little while back in the 90s. And you'd see some stuff out there, mostly Janet flights that would fly out to Area 51. I would watch those, but so I mean, what I'm trying to say there too is that I do have an interest in this stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I do maybe I see some of these things because I want to see them, or I want to I put the effort in, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to look. Most people are walking around looking at the ground or looking at their phones. I'm looking at the sky any chance I got,
Right. I mean, you can't catch fish without a pole, so
exactly.
you're putting yourself in the environment, right place, right time, and it just happens. So yeah, I mean, that totally is plausible and makes sense,
And
yeah, that's interesting.
I have one more that I said that I didn't mention on the Facebook, and that happened right here. Where the direction I'm facing is where my house is at,
right?
And about 100 feet from here, and I got a deck out back of my house. And this happened about 5 years ago, almost to the week, because I know this because I got married on June 1st of 2019. And this happened less than a week later. And this one's really interesting. And I cannot believe I didn't mention this on the Facebook thing, but it's kind of long to type it out too.
Right.
And I go into more detail too, just by telling you. It was Saturday, Saturday, June 1st, we got married. So I think this was the Friday after. It was nighttime. I had family in. My sister lives over in the UK, and she was in with her family for the wedding, and they all gone off to the bar, local pub as they would call it. And I was with my wife and a couple other friends on my back deck, and I got a table of chairs around it there. And this is about 10:30ish, 11 o'clock at night, and at that time of night, at this time of year, just above my house, you'll see the Big Dipper.
Right.
I'm facing west here, so yeah. So if you look up almost directly over my house, you'll see the Big Dipper. And I was just sitting back in the chair. I think we were having just a couple beers, and I'm sitting like this, looking at the sky while everybody else is talking around the table because I'm watching the sky like I do. Right. Perfectly clear night. And I saw a few things that night that were really weird up there. And these were not in our atmosphere. They were out of our atmosphere or out of orbit, because this was not satellite. You could see satellites anytime you wander around here. And I know what those look like. I know what an airplane looks like, obviously. Right. This was way the heck out there. It was a red light, and it was moving. If you would just go from south to west, I guess you would say. And it met up with the Big Dipper. Now Big Dipper is, you got the 4 stars that make the ladle part, and then you got the handle. So I happened to be looking up at this point, and I kind of picked up on it as it was right overhead, right about where the end of the ladle part is. Or I'm sorry, the handle part is at the very end. And it just kind of moseyed over to that bottom rear star on the ladle part of the dipper. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Now, this is probably just from my point of view perspective of how I was seeing this, maybe. But then this thing shot straight up to the star above it. And this is this is going to sound crazy, but this is legit. I saw this. Perfectly straight to that next star up on the Big Dipper. So it's at the top of the ladle now. When it did, that star lit up like flashed.
Huh.
And then this thing just kind of continued on over till I lost sight of it over out to the north over here, beyond the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there telling everybody, I'm like, did anybody look up and see that? And they're like, no, no, I didn't see it. Um, so I'm like ignoring everybody at my table at this point. I'm just sitting there watching the sky the rest of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had said something about like a rectangle thing a little bit ago. There was something like that I saw way the heck up there. It wasn't shiny though. It looked like it was kind of just in a shadow. I can make it out. It looked totally rectangle, looked huge, and it was beyond our satellites. And it looked like it had square, or I'm sorry, rectangle windows in it, like it was just like this straight rectangle shaped object that like it would have like little rectangle windows or whatever they were in it, and it was moving up there just from the south to the north. And
that was at nighttime too, or was that
yeah,
during the day?
it was just after I saw that thing over by the Big Dipper, like probably within 30 minutes.
Huh.
And I kept seeing things on different things flashing that night in the sky, like back over towards the northeast.
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing things. It was just a really odd thing going on that night where I've seen a whole bunch of things lighting up or flashing.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
a lot of activity.
Yeah, I have no idea what the heck that stuff was, but I mean, to this day, I think about it every now and then. I'm like, what was that would be so perfectly lined up with the Big Dipper? And now the Big Dipper, those stars are light years apart.
Right.
So it had to have been something that was just closer to us that did that. And it was just my perspective on it, how it lined up with the star. The stars. That's how I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, if it was in front of the star and then
and it was just closer to us.
Whatever it was lit up, or did it light something up on that star? I mean, that's a deep question, I mean, that's like
It was an odd night. Was just sitting there watching that because I'd never seen so much activity like that. Sometimes I'll sit and I'll be able to pick out satellites and stuff, but these were not satellites.
Right.
You
can see SpaceX. There's satellites. You can see those very well because they're all running a train.
Yeah, we see those a lot out here. Yeah, we go out camping or something. And my friend's got a thing where he gets on his phone when it's going to be overhead, or the space station. All that stuff. I've seen all that stuff.
Yeah.
Seen the space station with the shuttle chasing it one time.
Right.
Catching up to it, to dock with it. That was pretty cool.
Right. I imagine.
But that's commonplace stuff now to see it. Because we know that's there and it's commonplace. This was nothing that was commonplace that night.
I don't know I always like to go back sometimes to the story of the White House whenever it was like the 1940s. I don't know if it was 47. Is when
51, I think it was.
Yeah, whenever all the UFOs flew over the White House and onto the lawn, and people were just like taking pictures with their old cameras and just like in awe. And I guess it only happened like once or twice, and then it never happened again. And it was like a big thing at the time. But it's like, to me, that's still something that's unexplainable. Like, what was that? Because we didn't have that technology.
What I heard was that Eisenhower that was president then. I'm trying to think who was before him.
Oh man, if I have to think about it.
But yeah, I don't know my history of my presidents, but I don't know who. Either way, when that happened, suppose whoever was the president, this has been on these shows too, where he was out in was it California or something like that, and disappeared for a day.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knew where he was, and he said he had a dental emergency or something like that. But
Yeah, I heard
The
about that.
speculation is that he was having a meeting with supposed like aliens that he was basically reading them the riot act for violating our airspace and trying to work out a truce with them on something on that, or I don't know. It's kind of one of those things that I saw on TV again. Just a lot of
I
those
think it
History
was.
Channel things or whatever. They kind of read into things and
I think it was Harry S. Truman was in
Truman.
50.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had to look that up. I was bugging you.
But yeah, actually, I talked to a guy that lived when I lived over when I used to live in a condo over in Aurora, and one of my neighbors lived out in D.C. area at the time that UFO thing happened. He was a kid. He was probably, I think, 10 years old, and he was on a school bus when that happened. And what he told me, he said that they had stopped on a like a little bridge over a creek or something,
hmm
and you could see all these meadows or grassy areas all over the place. And you see Washington D.C. and all that. And he said when those things flew over, he said that he saw a bunch of missiles rise up out of the ground, like on an angle, like on a platform,
hmm
like they were ready to shoot whatever it was down from that. And I never heard anything about that on any of the shows that said anything about this thing or that instant, or
hmm
I'm sorry, that occurrence that happened with those things flying over DC. But um, this is what he said, and then he told me that the next thing they knew is that it was like late at night and it was dark out.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Well,
what did he go through that he's repressing? I have no idea.
yeah, who knows? That's I mean, heck, to even be able to talk to anyone that was there, that would be unreal,
Yeah,
like,
and this guy he ended up working for Lockheed
gosh,
Martin and everything,
yeah,
and
like
then he moved out here to work for Caterpillar in the early '70s. But
I would just love to get someone on the show that either was there or that their grandfather was there and they told them the story, what happened, like anything, that would just be so freaking cool, you know, to get that kind of testimony. And
yeah,
that's why I interview you guys, to get all these testimonies, because what I want to do is, like all these stories, whether it's like Bigfoot, cryptid, or paranormal UFO, and put them all together and look at the statistics on who's seen what are the similarities and everything, where are these people located? Are there any ties to it? Stuff like that. And so that's kind of why I do the interviews that I'm doing, why I do the show. It's kind of like just like a giant archive, so to speak. So feel good that you're you're contributing to that. And I'm like, also at the same time, like I like the current sightings that happen, but I'm also interested on stuff that's happened, before we ever had that technology to even reverse engineer or anything. Like before we could even do any of that, you know,
yeah,
there were signs of things that were way technologically advanced that we had no idea of, and those are also very intriguing as well. So, um, yeah, that would just be cool to, you know, either get somebody that's seen something in the 50s, 40s, whatever, a long time ago, or where do we all know that's a pretty big hotspot right now? Skinwalker Ranch, right? Like they
yeah.
have a lot of stuff that goes on. If I could, I mean, I would absolutely love to get Travis Taylor or Eric Bard on here and just interview them, for an hour. Um, just kind of pick their brain on some stuff. Cause
And find out what they're really seeing out there, maybe.
yeah, like, I
Because
mean,
the one thing about those kind of shows is they never get down to the bottom of anything, though. That's the thing. They always
right,
leave the mystery hanging. You know,
right,
and it's like, are they just being told that they cannot broadcast that? You know,
right.
are they told, well,
Possibly. I mean, you got to be careful what you put out there, and I'm not saying that they're a scripted show by any means,
yeah,
but sometimes you have to follow an outline of what you can or can't say.
yeah,
And so they could be seeing something bizarre and they just can't exactly say what it is. But it seems like they always get a reaction somehow, some kind of response out there, and it feels like a hotbed. Like the whole state of Utah really just feels like, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, it just feels like a giant hotbed for UFO activity, lights. But like where you're at too, in the northern area, there's a lot of stuff out there too. So I don't know. It's just hard to. I mean, Oklahoma has its little bit, but it's just everywhere. But like I said, Utah,
When
the
you get
west.
out west, where
Hmm.
it's rural,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think maybe
I would
it's.
think that if there's any intelligent life that is behind these UFOs, um, are going to probably, if they don't want to be seen, they're probably going to pick an area like that out there to, I mean, starting back in the 40s with, when with the Roswell stuff,
Hmm.
they were, where were they? They were Roswell, New Mexico, or just outside of Roswell, New Mexico, and that happened just after that one pilot had seen these flying discs out over by, well, I don't know what mountain it was. Can't remember now, but he had
I know
reported
what you're
seeing.
talking about.
He,
Yeah.
that report kind of coined the term flying saucer.
Hmm.
But it seems to me that when you're out there, and it's darker out there too at night, and it sounds counterintuitive, but you see more in the dark.
Right.
Because these things are lighting up. You know,
Right.
usually. I've gone through all those. I've studied them as far as all that goes, and the Area 51 stuff and all that, and the Bob Lazar story. If you've ever, I would like to interview him. You know,
Yeah, that would be
I would like
that
to
would
have.
probably break YouTube, I'm pretty sure. So who knows? Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be heck, I'm kind of a new channel. That'd be great just to interview anybody that has any kind of um, professional experience where they had to work somewhere where they had to keep something top secret,
yeah,
as far as that goes. Like that would be pretty cool because I guess I know about him somewhat, not a whole lot, but I know there was something about part of a mountain opening up
yeah.
around
Areas
the
out at
desert.
Area 51, Hangar S1, they called it,
Yeah.
um, or something like that. It was like south of Area 51, actually. The hangar built into the side of a mountain,
Hmm.
and the doors were textured to look like the mountain.
Right.
And he said that's where he worked, and was
That's just wild.
supposed to figure out the propulsion system on these things or something, because they
Mhm.
supposedly had one or three of them or whatever that they had recovered. Um, and from what I've learned from listening to him talk, and from what I kind of figured out, it's pretty simple technology once you get to it, because they're not complicated as far as how they work.
Right.
But it's the element that you need to make them work. That's the complicated part for us. You
Right.
know, I mean, supposedly they're only setting up their own magnetic field in front of them, front of themselves, and they get pulled to that magnetic field, and that's how they get that kind of infinite speed. I mean, but that's a whole other subject matter. But
Yeah, it's like solving gravity, basically, It's like
yeah,
in a way. So
but
yeah, I don't know. But that's a time for another episode. But I mean that's still it kind of leaves you to wonder, and that's kind of the cooler, I guess, coolest part about it is just
I,
technology and what's
I do
happening.
have kind of an interesting thing to tell you too.
Okay.
And this goes back to my dad. My dad's passed away for 22 years now, but um, when he was born, my grandfather was in the Pacific theater in World War II. He flew in a B-25. Um, my grandmother, of course, was still here stateside, but when my grandfather's tour of duty was over, he got stationed over at Wright-Patterson Airfield.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about the Area 51 stuff and the Roswell stuff, you've
Mm-hmm.
probably heard that they eventually sent the bodies of the supposed aliens over to Wright-Patterson, Air
Right.
Force Base, Hangar 18.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the time, my dad was born right at the tail end of the May 2nd, 1945. So it was just a couple of days after Hitler died. It
Mm-hmm.
was at the end of the European World War, part of it. And my grandfather was already over here stateside, and he was working at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. At the time, Hangar 18 was converted into a makeshift hospital.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was born in that hospital.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I
That's
used to
wild.
give him all kinds of grief about that all the time. I used to call him an alien all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was actually born in Hangar 18. At the time, he had a heck of a time. He had to find a copy of his birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to go over to England to visit my sister back in the early mid 90s, and
Mm-hmm.
it took I don't know how long, years, to locate a birth certificate for him
Man.
because of the fact that at the time in 1945, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base straddled two different counties,
Oh.
and then one county annexed the other county,
Yep.
and nobody knew where his record of birth was.
Man.
He eventually got it, but yeah, it was just kind of funny,
Yeah.
that my dad was, claim to fame could be that he was born in Hangar 18.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I
And
mean,
he never really thought anything of it, or never really knew what it was about.
right.
But when it all came out, mostly in the 90s, when it came out, all the Roswell stuff, and as it approached the 50th anniversary of that crash, and then all the stories come out about what happened to the alien bodies and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
Hangar, and then Megadeth did that song Hangar 18, which I always thought was kind of funny. But
He could have passed him and not even known it.
right, but yeah, I went out there one time back in, I guess it was 2010. Went out there to Wright-Patterson. They got a museum out there. You could go do that, and then they got a big hangar out there where they keep all the previous Air Force One jets
Mm-hmm.
or airplanes from the first one all the way up to the one that Kennedy, the famous SAM 26,000,
Right.
the Kennedy plane. All there, you could go on them and stuff, but they take you on a bus and you can't take photographs of the base at all as you're
Mm-hmm.
going across the base. But you could take photographs inside the hangar. But I just kept thinking, I wonder if this is actually Hangar 18 or these other
Yeah.
buildings. Of course, a lot has changed, I'm sure, since 1945 on the base,
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
so I don't know. Maybe I'm destined to see these things in the sky, I guess.
Maybe, who knows? I mean, it's hard to tell, but that's kind of fortunate that you've been able to see it, though. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
it's a good story for the grandkids, and it's a good story to, tell people that are interested in it. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad to have heard all your stories about, the sightings that you've had or the encounters that you've had, because it's once in a lifetime type of deals right there, I
it
think.
is. I kind of hope I would see something else again someday.
Never know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Eric, I appreciate having you on the show, and thank you for sharing all these stories. And
It's been my pleasure.
everyone will definitely enjoy watching these for the months, days, weeks, and years to come, for sure. So,
Well, I'm glad I got it out there. Like I said, I've told these stories to a few people, and not a lot of my friends care much about it, but my wife, I've told her about it, and everybody's
right.
like, okay, that's weird. Eric, were you drunk, or what were you doing then? But no, yeah, but the community is out there, and I think the day is coming where this is going to be commonplace to be able to, you won't have to worry about your job if you saw a UFO and you talk to the news about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a taboo so much anymore as it was, a few years back.
Right. It's more of accepted things because of the
And there's no
frequency.
denying it.
Right.
No.
Yep, that's definitely true. Definitely true. Cool. Well, all right, Eric, you have a good rest of your night, and thank you for joining us on A Story with Rory, and I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, and you have a good night.
You too. Hey, guys, thanks for watching A Story with Rory. Until next time, see you later.